The mansion had stood abandoned for decades, perched on a hill at the edge of town. Its stone walls were cracked, ivy creeping over broken windows, and the iron gates groaned when the wind blew. Locals whispered about it, warning that the mirrors inside did not reflect what was real. Strange faces appeared in the glass, faces that weren't yours, never had been, yet somehow knew you. Curiosity, or perhaps foolishness, drew me there one gray evening. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the mansion shrouded in shadow. I pushed the heavy gates open. Rust crunched beneath my boots, and the air was thick with decay. The front door was massive, carved with intricate patterns that had faded over time. I hesitated, hand hovering over the knob. Then I entered. Darkness swallowed me. The mansion's interior was a labyrinth of dust-covered furniture, tattered curtains, and broken chandeliers hanging precariously from the ceiling. My flashlight flickered across the walls, landing on the first mirror. At first, I saw only myself, pale, wide-eyed, frozen with hesitation. Then, behind me in the reflection, a shadowy figure appeared. A man. A woman. Impossible to tell. I spun around. The hallway was empty. My heart raced. The next mirror in the grand foyer showed another face. A child, staring directly at me, expressionless, eyes hollow. Again, I turned. Nothing. The mirrors didn't lie, but they didn't reveal reality either. Each reflected image seemed to exist on its own, independent of the space around me. I moved further into the mansion, each step echoing in the cavernous halls. Another mirror, this one cracked, leaned against a wall. I hesitated before looking. A woman appeared, her mouth moving, whispering words I couldn't understand. I took a step back. The reflection mimicked my movement perfectly, but her lips continued to form those impossible words. A chill ran down my spine. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching unnaturally. The mirrors seemed to capture them, reflecting things that weren't there when I looked away. Whispers followed me, soft at first, then louder, overlapping, forming sentences I couldn't comprehend. Look, stay, join us. The mansion's rooms twisted and looped in ways that defied logic. Every hallway seemed longer than the last. I passed a tall, ornate mirror. This time, more than a reflection appeared. Behind me, several figures, indistinct, pale, faceless, stood in the glass. I whirled around. Empty hallways. No one. My flashlight trembled in my hands, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. I reached a grand staircase. The banister was coated with decades of dust, yet I could see faint handprints, as if someone had recently gripped it. Another mirror hung on the landing wall. I looked into it and froze. Faces crowded the glass, some familiar, some impossibly distorted, all staring directly at me. The reflection of the room behind me was different. There were figures standing there, shifting, watching. I turned again. Nothing. The mansion seemed alive, breathing, watching. Mirrors became portals of awareness, showing not only unknown faces but snippets of movement, moments that hadn't happened, or hadn't happened yet. Each reflection whispered warnings, beckoned me, challenged me. The air grew colder, my breath visible, heart racing. I entered what had once been the mansion's main hall. Dusty chandeliers hung from above. Large mirrors lined the walls. I could see dozens of faces staring at me, each moving slightly independently, eyes tracking, mouths forming words I could not hear. The whispers merged into a single voice, soft but insistent. Stay, don't leave, see us. Footsteps echoed from the upper floors. I knew I was alone. Or at least I wanted to believe it. My flashlight flickered, illuminating another mirror at the far end of the hall. I looked into it, and the reflection smiled. I hadn't. The mirror's face moved with intent, a grin spreading slowly, impossibly, while my own face remained frozen with fear. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over debris. The mansion seemed to react. Mirrors shifted positions when I wasn't looking, reflecting angles that made no sense, bending space. Shadows moved across the floor, reflected in the mirrors before appearing in reality. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, calling me by name, urging me to look, to stay, to join. I realized then that leaving would not be simple. The mansion didn't just house shadows and mirrors, it controlled them. Each step forward was mirrored, tracked, analyzed. Each glance at a reflection revealed not just who I was, but who, or what, the mansion wanted me to become. And in that moment, I understood, the mirrors were not passive. They were alive. Observing. Waiting. Feeding. And now, they had noticed me. I pressed forward into the mansion, each step careful, yet echoing unnaturally in the empty halls. The mirrors multiplied, lining every corridor, every room, reflecting not only myself but countless other faces, each pale, hollow, watching. Some were familiar yet wrong, like distorted versions of people I knew, or had known in dreams. The grand dining room was massive, long tables covered in dust and cracked plates. Mirrors hung along the walls, their surfaces warped. As I approached, a figure appeared behind me in the reflection, a tall man in a tattered suit, staring directly at me. I spun around. Empty room. My heart beat thunder. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, yet the feeling of being watched, observed, was undeniable. Every mirror seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Faces shifted when I wasn't looking directly at them, forming grotesque grins, pleading eyes, silent screams. Shadows moved across the floor, sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind, always connected to the reflections. In one hallway, a cracked mirror revealed a child crouched, whispering words I couldn't comprehend. I stepped back, stumbled, and nearly fell over a fallen chair. The child's reflection mimicked my panic perfectly, then slowly stood, raising its head, staring at me through the glass, a silent accusation in its hollow eyes. I moved cautiously up a narrow staircase. Mirrors lined the landing, tall and imposing. One mirror reflected not just me, but a dozen figures standing behind me. I turned rapidly. Nothing. The reflection, however, remained. The figures moved independently of my own movements, shifting, bending, staring. I felt them breathing, whispering, their presence pressing against the edges of my consciousness. I reached the second floor, a corridor of rooms, each doorway framed with cracked mirrors. Some mirrors reflected rooms that didn't exist, showing hallways that twisted impossibly, ceilings stretching, floors bending. I realized the mansion itself was alive, its mirrors forming a labyrinth that defied logic, impossible to map, impossible to escape. The whispers escalated, overlapping voices forming sentences in a language I almost recognized. See, join, remain, you belong, my flashlight flickered. Shadows flickered. A mirror at the end of the hall reflected a figure approaching me slowly, smiling in a way no human could. I backed away, watching the reflection, knowing it wasn't my own movement but something else entirely. I entered what must have once been a library. Mirrors lined the walls between towering shelves. Reflections danced across the glass, showing people seated, reading, watching me, their eyes pleading, angry, curious. I saw myself reflected, yet my expression was different, hardened, fearful, yet smiling with a sinister edge. I wasn't smiling. But in the mirrors, I was. A sudden noise, a low, groaning creak, echoed through the mansion. A chandelier above swayed despite no breeze, scattering light across the mirrors. Reflections shifted faster, faces morphing, merging, some appearing to reach out from the glass. Whispers surged into a roar, layered voices all saying my name, calling me, commanding me to stop, to look, to remain. I turned down a hallway lined with ornate mirrors. One in particular drew me in. The glass was perfect, unbroken, and as I stared, I saw not only myself but a room behind me I didn't recognize. Figures moved within it, shadowy, indistinct, yet perfectly synchronized with the tolling of some internal rhythm. I stepped back. The reflection stayed, eyes following, beckoning. The mansion's power became undeniable. Each mirror acted as both observer and conduit. Faces in the glass twisted and writhed independently, shadows stretching out, sometimes touching the edges of my reflection, sometimes breaking free and moving along the walls of reality itself. I realized then, the mansion didn't just contain ghosts. It was aware. It was sentient. And it had decided I would be part of it. I tried to leave, retracing my steps, but the corridors twisted unnaturally. Mirrors that hadn't been there moments before now blocked my path, reflecting rooms I didn't recognize, corridors I hadn't walked down. The mansion's architecture had changed, and I was trapped inside a reflective labyrinth. Then I noticed them, tiny movements at the edges of every mirror. Figures huddled, crouched, standing silently, waiting. Some I recognized, vaguely, from the faces that had haunted me in dreams or passing reflections in real life. Others were entirely unknown, their eyes hollow, mouths forming silent words. They weren't trapped in the mirrors. They were emerging. Or waiting to. A cold, whispering voice echoed in my mind. You are ours. Stay, belong. Shadows coiled along the floor, following my steps, climbing walls, flickering across every reflective surface. The mirrors were no longer just reflections. They were gateways, extensions of the mansion's will. The air grew heavier, each breath laborious, each heartbeat a drum synced to the silent rhythm of the mirrors. I pressed on, finally reaching the grand staircase again, desperate for the front door. Mirrors lined the landing, reflecting versions of myself I did not recognize. Faces twisted, reaching, beckoning. I realized in terror that if I stayed too long, the mansion would not just observe me, it would replace me. My reflection would step out, my body trapped in the glass, joining the others, while a twisted version of me roamed freely in the real world. I knew I had to escape. With shaking hands, I turned, sprinted down the staircase. Reflections multiplied, echoing my panic, some showing my flight slowed, some showing me already captured. Shadows followed, reaching, pressing, whispering. The mansion itself seemed to breathe around me, folding hallways, twisting rooms, always keeping me within its grasp. I burst through the front door into the night. The air was cold, clear, but the mansion loomed behind me, windows dark, mirrors unlit, yet alive in ways I could feel. My reflection, my real one, staggered outside with me, but the memory of the faces, the whispers, the shadows, lingered in my mind. I knew the mansion would wait, patient, eternal, ready for the next curious soul. The mansion loomed behind me as I stumbled across the cracked gravel driveway, moonlight spilling over broken statues and tangled ivy. Every instinct screamed to keep moving, yet the mirror's images burned in my mind, the hollow eyes, twisted smiles, the silent whispers calling my name. I could feel the mansion's presence pressing against me, even from the outside. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, and for a moment, I thought I saw faces in the cracked windows, watching, waiting. The air was thick, vibrating with a silent rhythm that pulsed in time with my own heartbeat. The mansion had marked me. I knew it wouldn't let go. I forced myself to keep walking, moving toward the main road and the faint lights of town. Every step echoed unnaturally, and in the distance, the mansion seemed to shift, corridors bending impossibly, windows stretching into darkness. I glanced back once, just once, and saw a figure standing in the grand doorway. Not me, but something shaped like me. It mimicked my posture perfectly, staring with my own eyes, smiling in the way the mirrors had shown me. Panic surged. The mansion's true nature revealed itself in that instant. The mirrors weren't just reflections. They were portals, traps, conduits for its will. Anyone who entered risked being replaced, their likeness trapped behind the glass, joining the countless unknown faces that waited patiently in every reflective surface. I broke into a run, stumbling over roots and gravel, heart hammering. Behind me, the whispers rose, layered, chanting, overlapping. Stay, belong, become. The shadows seemed to follow, stretching, twisting along the edge of the driveway, as if reaching for me through the thin veil of reality. Finally, I reached the road. The town's lights flickered reassuringly in the distance, but even as I approached, I could feel the mansion's gaze, alive and patient, marking me. I dared not look back, knowing that the moment I did, I could see my reflection, or a version of myself that would never leave the mirrors behind. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of a well-lit street, surrounded by houses, sounds of normal life, cars, distant laughter, dogs barking. The mansion was behind the hill, silent, still, yet somehow pulsing with awareness. I knew it was waiting for the next soul, and I was forever marked, carrying its rhythm in my mind. Even in the safety of my home, I couldn't escape it. Mirrors, ordinary ones, started to reflect things that weren't there. Faces appeared for brief seconds, always watching, always calling. Shadows moved just beyond my vision. I understood then that the mansion's power extended far beyond its walls. Once it noticed you, it never truly releases you. I warned myself never to speak its name aloud, never to return. And yet, the memory haunted me constantly. Every mirror I passed held the possibility of a hidden face waiting, and every reflective surface whispered faintly, "We see you, we remember, join us." If you ever encounter a deserted mansion, especially one rumored to hold mirrors that do not show your reflection, remember this: do not enter. The mirrors do not merely reflect, they observe, they capture, they can replace. One glance may be enough. The mansion is patient, eternal, and it waits for anyone curious enough to step through its doors. I know I will never forget the faces, the whispers, the shadows. And one day, someone else may walk through its doors, curiosity guiding them, unaware that the mirrors will see them, know them, and trap a piece of their soul forever. If this story sent chills down your spine, like, share, and subscribe for more haunted locations, abandoned mansions, and eerie tales where mirrors show more than just reflections, shadows never rest, and some places never forget.